we need to get turned up at all? Is everybody good? Okay. Yeah, sorry for getting started a little bit late here, having technical difficulties. The nice thing is that we now have this channel 99.1, so we have a lot of folks out there that are watching this on the TVs in their room. So it's awesome to have that capability now. So we have a lot of folks here that are not residents of the IDVA Veteran Col. I want to specifically acknowledge regularly the Soliers who were just here last week, 2 weeks ago, to commemorate Vietnam Veterans Recognition Day. Lori's brother, Garland Judge, was the last casualty of the Vietnam War on April 29th of 1975, 50 years ago. So we're so grateful that you guys have joined us today and that it continues to be great pillars of the community. I'd like to invite Dan Gannon to come forward along with Colonel Gerry Berry so that Dan can introduce Colonel Berry and we can learn about just a really awesome piece of United States history. This is truly like a bookend from the Vietnam War. And it's got an Iowa connection, and I'm super excited for everyone here to learn about this. So,
good morning. Good morning. When they say make it short, that means I cut it back for 2 hours. Is that okay? Well, I just met one of your residents, Jim Ross. Jim Ross was a foreman, Silver Star foreman in Vietnam, right? And what I bring that up for a reason. We talk about Garland Judge. He was one of the last two killed in Vietnam. And I bring that up because Iowa has another unique number. The first foreman killed in Vietnam was from Iowa. And down around Centerville's where we're at, I'm drawing a blank on his name, I should not. And he was killed in 1962. 62 is with the 1st Marine Airway. And their helicopter crashed. So I don't know anything about it, but he was our first corpsman too. So I thought that was kind of special. Well, again, thank you for being here. We'll get this kicked off. That's more important, right? Well, we have a number of service organizations. We have a VFW, we have American Legion, we have a DAB, and some other one, Marine Corps League, and some other like that. There's also one called the Vietnam Veterans of America. And that organization was established because of Vietnam. And they're the only congressional organization that was established for that reason. But they have a great founding principle that I want to bring up. Their founding principle is, and it matches our wall in Des Moines, the Vietnam Wall, Des Moines, very close. But what it says is, never again will one generation of veterans abandon another. Pretty powerful, right? Well, our keynote speaker, what I'm about to introduce, emulates that principle. Throughout all of his leadership activities, during his years of service to our great country, or his personal life, as activities, he emulates that. And where he really emulated it, he got Rob the ambassador out of Vietnam instead of him staying behind. So I thought that's kind of a powerful thing. Well, I'd like to introduce Colonel Gerry Berry, United States Marine Corps retired. Gerry Berry is a true Iowan with Iowa values. He was raised in Des Moines, attended and graduated Des Moines Technical High School, now at Central Campus, and then graduated from Simpson College in Indianola, and then was commissioned as second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps in January of 1968. He completed flight training as a CH-46 helicopter. How many know what a CH-46 helicopter is? Most of us do, as you're connected to the Marine Corps. We flew CH-46s like the Army flew Hueys. first tour, again, 2 tours. His duties on his first tour at that time was to support all the combat ground operations through tactical airlifts. And I just want to say, when I listened to him yesterday, but he was a little bit before my time, but he was talking about this tremendous firefight they had, and his aircraft took a number of bullets, but it was down in the same area I was, but it was a little different time. So no, it wasn't. It was me. On Colonel Berry's second tour, he was part of Operation Frequent Wind, which you've all heard about, and that's what this page is about. He was assigned to support the evacuation of Saigon. His final Vietnam mission culminated in a successful airlift of the U.S. Ambassador Grady Martin from the embassy in Saigon, what signaled the end of the war. Therefore, we can say Colonel Berry helped in or get in the Vietnam War. And he had some other things. He also served in the Mideast Wars, so some of you might relate to that too, because it's a little earlier. In July 1991, he assumed command of the Marine Aircraft Group 36, overseeing 60 aircraft and 3,000 men to support the free operation of Operation Desert Shield. Colonel Berry's military decorations include 3 distinguished flying crosses, 2 meritorious service medals, 2 single mission air medals, and 46 other air medals, and the Navy Commendation Medal and the Combat Action. After serving 25 years, he retired from the Marine Corps in 1993. Colonel Berry and his wife Kate reside in Florida and is honored to have them back in Iowa to share their unbelievable life experiences, which you're going to hear in a short time, while serving his country with us during our special week. We've got a special week for Vietnam vets to honor all of our Vietnam era veterans and families. Let's give Colonel Berry, Gerry Berry, United States Marine Corps, retired, a warm and welcome.
Okay, I guess we're ready to start now. Can you hear me? Yeah. That's the important. Well, Dan covered most of it. I'm very honored and privileged to be here to talk to a number of veterans, especially my war, the Vietnam War. I know that the majority of people here are Vietnam veterans. Very proud of that. I did grow up in Des Moines, Iowa. I feel always honored and great privilege to be from Iowa. It's my blessing and my foundation. And before I start today, I would like to tell you why I think I'm even qualified to speak today. And it's for 2 reasons. One, I was born on 21 February 1945. The same day my dad crossed the beach at Iwo Jima as a private in the Marine Corps. The second reason I think I'm qualified, as Dan alluded to, I personally ended the war in Vietnam. But that's what I'd like to say. I think the Vietnam veterans, and I'm prejudiced, are the best America had. And I'll tell you why. You know, in the 60s, we had young men burning their draft cards, running to Canada to get out of the draft. We had men and women who were still loyal to their country. Brave men who fought and did their duty when it wasn't popular to do so. When we went to Vietnam, I think we thought it was a noble cause, fighting for freedom for the people of South Vietnam. We also thought it was a noble cause, fighting to stop the spread of communism. The Vietnam veteran served, they fought, they died, they went home. When they came home, if they came home, they received here their country's compassion for their country's glory. The Vietnam veteran is the best that we have. Now let me start this a little bit. I think you've got the slideshow up. I did a Zoom call recently with high school students. It was interesting. The first question they asked me was, how we rated all the presidents who were involved with the Vietnam War. I said, I don't have any idea. I never even thought of it. But it was an interesting question. So I want to tell you that when we started in Vietnam with the MACV, Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, President Eisenhower, when he left office in 1961, we had 200 advisors in Vietnam. When John Kennedy, President of the United States, was assassinated on 23 November of 1963, we had between 16 and 18,000 troops in Vietnam. So there was a significant event that happened. Under the Kennedy administration, Henry Cavalage was the ambassador to Vietnam, and CIA and the State Department were very complicit in the assassination of the president of South Vietnam, Ariel. And I don't remember if you recall what Colin Powell said when we went into Iraq and we had problems. If you break it, you own it. And I think on that day, 1 November 1963, we broke it, we owned the war. We had another significant event that happened in August of 1964, if you recall. The Gulf of Tonkin incident, where two Navy destroyers, the Maddox and the Turner Joy, were supposedly attacked by North Vietnamese torpedo boats. I think that's become just a myth. But what we got out of that was the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, which, for anything else, was basically a declaration of war by the United States on North Vietnam. Now, President Johnson, when he took over, was very perplexed by this war. He didn't know how to get in. He certainly didn't know how to get out. But he kept feeding troops into Vietnam. And he had a Secretary of Defense named Robert McNamara. Now, Robert McNamara had an interesting thing on Vietnam. If you remember, he was the president of the Ford Motor Company before he became Secretary of Defense. He created the Edsel, so that might tell you something I really not. It didn't work out. He had this theory that if you did graduated pressure on North Vietnam, you could get the war over. So I would tell you the next 4 years, when he was Secretary of Defense, what we had was negotiation by escalation. We kept adding more and more troops. The NVA would send more and more troops. We bombed Hanoi, Haiphong. They would send more troops and get more missiles and rockets to shoot down our airplanes. Now, it's interesting for your Vietnam veterans, you all remember this. We had a strategy, if you could call it a strategy. Westmoreland developed this thing called body count. And that was how we determined if we were winning or losing, was body count. I'm telling you, if you were a parent or you were serving, body count's not a great thing for you. Ho Chi Minh's answer was 10 to 1. He didn't care. They had a different meaning for life. Here's the interesting thing. Through this negotiation by escalation, we end up with 550,000 troops in Vietnam by 1968. But America is still very supportive of the war. But then in January of 68, we had an event that basically turned the war and turned the people of America against the war, the Tet Offensive. Now, if you remember the Tet Offensive, the North Vietnamese and their allies, the Viet Cong, the indigenous South Vietnamese, attacked basically every major city in South Vietnam. They even were on the embassy grounds. The big event was also, they sent a regiment of NVA to take Hue City. Now, what America saw on TV was this constant fighting. The battles were easily won by the United States of America and their South Vietnamese allies. They took a devastating defeat on the NVA. But a battle that lasted for 3 weeks. We had 2 battalions of Marines assigned to take back the old imperial city of Wade, which was taken by a regiment of, they saw on TV 3 weeks of bombing, strafing, house-to-house fighting. America was turning against the war. And we had other big events that caused us along the way. If anybody remembers 1968, kind of the year the dream died, Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis in March of 1968. Robert Kennedy was assassinated in June of 1968 after he won the California primary. But to put the Vietnam War, in a little bit of perspective, in June of 1968, we had killed in action in Vietnam over 2,500 American troops. Now, I put it in perspective, I think about the war in Afghanistan. 20 years, just over 2,400 in 20 years died in Afghanistan. Over 2,500 in June of 1968. So the war caused a lot of issues. Out of the war, we got Richard Nixon elected president in 1968. And his promise was, of course, peace with honor. Now, I put this up because I want to tell everybody I wasn't always an octogenarian. I wasn't always 80 years old. I was actually younger at one point. But most of the Vietnam veterans in here remember the 60s. If you were a high school graduate or you weren't going to high school, if you were 18 years old and didn't have a college deferment, what was going to happen to you? There was no lottery going and you were just going to get drafted. And for me, I always remember I didn't know what to do. I got a draft notice when I was getting ready to graduate from Simpson College. I was on campus. Somebody says, well, you got to go down and see the Marine Officer Selection Officer. You could be an officer in the Marine Corps. My dad was a Marine. Maybe this wouldn't be a bad idea. So we dragged me down and I take a test. I pass it, I come out, and then a very significant thing in my life happened. I look up on the wall, there's a beautiful F-4 Phantom jet, and a handsome Marine pilot in an orange flight standing in front of me. So I said to the officer, selection officer, could I do that? He said, take another test. That's why I'm here today. I passed that test and became an officer and a pilot in the Marine Corps. Now, my mom would always tell you that 2 significant events happened in January of 1969. Richard Nixon was sworn in as President of the United States. The United States Marine Corps decided to send Second Lieutenant Gerry Berry, Flying Vietnam, to fly support missions in a CH-46 helicopter for Marine ground operations. Now, it didn't take long for most of us there to figure out 3 things about the war. One, and probably most of you are in the same boat, we didn't know exactly how this war got started, but it was a big-time war with North Vietnam. 2, very hard to figure out who was winning. We were doing the same thing over and over again with no real progress. And 3, in 1969, I'll promise you, no one in Hanoi, no one in Saigon, or no one in Washington, D.C. knew how this war was going to end. That's the best photo I have of myself. I always like to tell the story, 2 war stories from 1969. In September of 1969, I was a flight leader, first lieutenant by now, of 2 CH-46 helicopters and 2 attack helicopters. Our mission was to rescue a recon team, or retrieve a recon team from the Ashaw Valley. Now, the Ashaw Valley is a very low valley. If some of you have been there, the clouds can hang over. So the first day we're on our way out to pick them up, the clouds are on the mountains, you can't get in. So, called the team leader and said, we're not going to be able to get you out today. Well, Marine recon is tough. The leader said, another day, another zone, come get us tomorrow. Same weather the next day, same conversation. The third day now we go out, same calls, 2 CH-46s, 2 text, I said, called the team leader, said, we can't get you out today, what did you say? He said, well, we have a difference now. We've been in contact with the enemy, and we have a wounded Marine. We've got to figure out how to get us out of here. Can't figure out how to do that. So I thought, when you're young and bold as a pilot, you think you can do about anything. I said, if I knew where you were down there, I could shoot my own GCA through the clouds, land and take you up. If you shoot a star cluster up through the clouds, sure. He fires a star cluster up. I said, I'm going to try to come get you. If you hear me getting close, popping a little smoke, I'll land and pick you up. You've got to figure out that this is not small. GCAs are shot with runways with the ground control that tells you when the lights go on head. Anyway, I started in the clouds. I'm in there for about 10 seconds, and I thought, shoot, you've done this thing. I'm going to crash this helicopter. I have no idea what's going on. I'm probably kill all the pilots on board and not know anything for the Marines. But just as I'm about ready to grab a handful of power and break out, there's the yellow smoke. Roy James is back in the right seat, feeling good about himself. I get the Marines, my port gunner runs out to help with the Marines, and then I start taking fire from just off the left front. I'm thinking, now how am I going to get out of here now? Port gunner's out, he can't shoot. And just then that tree line opens up. And one of the Cobras came through with me. I didn't realize he was coming through, but he decimated that tree line. We got the Marines, we got them out. Now we fly back to Way City and land. Now we're going to do a debrief. So I said, why didn't you come through with me? He said, you're a Marine. We were going to let you go through by yourself. And the other side of that story, the Cobra pilot that came through with me was a 1963 graduate of Lincoln High School in Des Moines. A small world. So that was successful. I felt good about it. I always remember because I never forgot Doug Simmons after that. That was his name. About 3 weeks later, we had one that wasn't quite so successful. We put a recon team in about 25 miles west of Da Nang, and we dropped them in. There was no problem getting into the zone. Now we're flying back, and we get the call, said, you got to come back and get us, because we're taking heavy enemy fire from the north. It's not a call you want to get, so we start back in to get them out. They're still taking fire. We can't get in. We're taking too much fire, and the Cobras can't even quell it. So I said to the team leader, if you could just move over that little ridge line, I think we could hover and pull you through the side door. They do it. So I come in, we're pulling these guys through the side door. We get most of them in. That ridge line just in front of us just opens up. All kinds of fire. We can't pull it. We take 79 hits to the helicopter that day. Now there's 11 of us on board, 5 crew members, and 6 recon Marines. I'm the oldest one at 24 years old. Shows you how young we all were. Anyway, those 11 Marines on board, 8 were WIA, wounded in action. 2 have their names on the wall at the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. I didn't have a stretch on me. And sometimes in life you can't figure out how those things kind of work out. But it marked me for life. It's a day I'll never forget. And probably not a week goes by where I don't remember that day. All right, here's what we are now. We're planning for withdrawal. Everybody wants out. We're in negotiation phase. America's very, very in war. If anybody remembers too, 1970, a lot of anti-war demonstrations going on, and we had 4 students killed at Kent State University, the National Guard. Very tragic day. But so people often ask, and I'm sure you've all been asked, what was it like when you came home in 1970 and all these anti-war demonstrations? Well, I tell people that I have my own story. It's a little different. Turned out a little better than it did for a lot of people who came home. But I had a brand new the head was. I couldn't wait to drive that car back to Des Moines to see my mom after being away for 13 months. So I'm driving that car back. I'm just south of Wichita, Kansas. The heat gauge was crazy. I don't know what it is. I pulled off the side of the road, opened the hood, of course the radiator steamed like mad. I'm not going to touch that. I touched the dipstick. The oil dipstick is all foamy white, so I think, well, I'm not smart, but this isn't good. Something's wrong. But I'm only short distance from Wichita. I said, I'm just going to drive it in. It blows up. I don't worry about it. I'm going to pull into the first service station I see. But I want to tell people in 1970, service stations were service stations. They had racks, they put cars up, they fixed cars. Not like today. So I get there, I pull off. It's about 6:30 at night. Come out, we had a conversation. He asked about I was on the way going home, see my mom. He said, well, it's about closing time. Why don't you come back about 8:30 tomorrow morning, and we'll discuss what we have to do, how long it's going to take, and what it's going to cost you. He said, meanwhile, I'll call my brother who owns a little motel down the street, and he'll take care of you for the night. So I go down. Next morning, my brother and I start walking back, and we get maybe 30, 40 yards from the gas station. I see the thing is all detailed. It looks beautiful. It's been washed. So I think, wow, this is pretty good. We get there, and the guy walks out and he said, we start chatting. And I said, well, he said, we had a couple of guys that stayed all night, work on your car. We had another one who found the parts to fix it. So I said to him, well, what's this going to cost you? He said, nothing. Go see your mom. So that was my occasion. Come home. I will say, America's a great place. America's a great place. We did this peace agreement, though, in 1973. And what we get out of that is all the American fighting men are coming home, and we get all the POWs out. What South Vietnam gets is a decent interval. There it is. For those who remember, two people got the Nobel Peace Prize. Henry Kissinger, our Secretary of State, took it. Laday Ace, basically Secretary of State for North Vietnam, refuses the Peace Prize because the war wasn't over for them. We withdraw, we're coming home. In late 1974, as we all expected, the NVA, North Vietnamese Army, attacked again across the militarized zone and through the Central Highlands. In March 10th of 1975, they launched their all-out attack to defeat and overrun the forces of South Vietnam, who really, without the promised American support, are ill-prepared to stop this onslaught. By the end of April, late 20s, they take the town just north of Saigon, which was the last major stop point for the South Vietnamese Army. They were defeated. Now the road was clear to Saigon. And on 28 and 29 April 1975, the North Vietnamese bombed and rocket the runways at Tan Son Nhut. Now, Tan Son Nhut, we were going to use large fixed-wing airplanes, C-141, C-5As, obviously to get the people out. They'd already been staged at the DAO compound, the defense attaché compound next to the runway. But Ambassador Martin now has waited too long. Can't use the runways. He's forced at 10:45 in the morning of the 29th to order Operation Frequent Wind, which becomes the largest helicopter evacuation in the history of the world. Now, the interesting thing about this is the Navy Marine Corps team, we're ready. The Navy has reconfigured two big deck carriers, the Hancock and the Midway, to operate with helicopters. The Air Force is giving assist. They put 10 helicopters on those ships. We have a total of 71 transport helicopters in the evacuation of Saigon. And the larger 53 is going to work the DAO compound, which is the primary place embassy's not supposed to be. But my mission is probably one of the simplest of the day. A little after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm designated to go pick up Ambassador Graham Martin at the embassy. I fly in, the first thing I notice is the crowds are absolutely immense. Every street, as far as you can see, is banged up against the embassy. Embassy grounds are full. I land behind the embassy, nothing happens. So I called the marine security guard over and I said, this is Laday Ace 09, I'm here to get the ambassador. And he runs in the building, comes back and says, the ambassador's not ready to go. We're going to load you up with the evacuees. Makes sense? We get loaded up, we take off, I'm flying out now because I'm flying Laday Ace 09 call sign. And I call gallant man who's helicopter direction control on the USS Okinawa. Evacuates me directly to the Blue Ridge, which is the command ship. I land, and the ferry comes out, Good America comes out, they want to go to the ambassador. And I'm thinking, you got direct communication with the ambassador, I don't. It might be nice if you coordinate this. So General Kerry says to me, we got to go back and get the ambassador, obviously. So we fly back, we get a new Model 53s are working the DAO compound. We have 46s now working the embassy, which isn't a primary backzone that we're working at. This goes on all day. In the early evening, the 53s finish at the DAO compound. They come over and help with the embassy. In early evening, you probably have a helicopter taken off in from the parking lot of the roof of the embassy about every 2 or 3 minutes. But about every 4th time, I get back to the USS Blue Ridge, and when Kerry comes out, always wants to know where the ambassador is. My thoughts are always the same. I want to give him a call, with a direct comm, make my life a bit easier. But the one thing you always notice is no matter how many we take out of the embassy grounds have just as many, if not more, people after every day. Now it gets to be 9, 10 o'clock at night. I notice that fewer and fewer helicopters are flying. I'm not surprised by this, because the weather's kind of bad and taking small arms fire along the Bunkhouse Peninsula. But this goes on. Now it's like 3 in the morning. I haven't heard another call for a while. I'm flying out with the passengers. We drop them off. On the way back in. Now it's 4 in the morning. Maybe 2 or 3 passes. I haven't heard anybody else call in or out. So I said to my women, I said, Klaus, have you heard anything? He said, no, I haven't heard anything at all. So now I pick up the next lift. We're on the way out. I call gallant man on helicopter direction control on the Okinawa, and I said, can I give you a situation report? He said, please. I said, well, I can see the tanks coming down the road. They're only about 5 miles from the city. They're not moving fast, but they're coming. The grounds are just as full of people as they were at 1 o'clock this afternoon. We're not making any progress. And the ambassador's still there. I said, and could you confirm there's only 2 helicopters of the 71 flying? I said, thank you for the sit rep. And yes, there's only 2 flying. Of course, as a good Marine, I said, why are there only 2 flying? He said, well, some shut down for weather, some shut down for maintenance. Well, I think I was the first guy out this afternoon. Who sounded like a pretty good idea. So I said to him then, I said, well, what are my orders? He said, continue with the mission. So now on my way back into Da Nang, into Saigon, I've been running around the ozone with my hair on fire for probably the last 6 hours, trying to accomplish this. Nothing's being done. I'm frustrated, I'm tired. And who's in charge here? Who's going to make this thing work? So I land on the roof. I get loaded up with Vietnamese. I tell my crew chief, get them all. Gets them off. I called the marine security guard over and I said, Laday Ace is not leaving the roof until the ambassador's on board. In my best aviator voice, I said, the president sends. Security guard goes down the stairs. Not more than 2 minutes later, the ambassador and his whole entourage are on board, and we're out of there. So now I'm flying out. I got the ambassador on board. I make the call, Tiger. We're heading for the USS Blue Ridge, obviously. I'm thinking, the ambassador was going down with the ship. He just wanted to be ordered out. I thought, I could have done 6 or 7 rounds. I'd save myself a lot of things. But I did. Well, then the Blue Ridge, General Perry comes out. I think finally he's marginally happy with me. And he said, well, you got to go back and get the Marines. I said, yes, sir, we'll get the 2 flying. Obviously, we got to go back and get them. But I said, there's 61 left. We need another helicopter. We're going to get them in 1 minute. So they did crank up another one. We flew back, got the Marines. We were joined by Swift 2, who took the last 11 off the roof. Now I'm on the way back out with the Marines. I'm thinking, the President of the United States had direct contact, Gerald Ford, with the ambassador. He didn't order him out. Henry Kissinger had direct contact with the ambassador. He was the immediate boss. He didn't order him out. I think Admiral Steele, 7th Fleet, probably could have ordered him out. No. The ambassador was ordered out by that roguishly handsome, global soldier you see, Captain Gerry Berry from Des Moines, Iowa. Now, in closing, I'd like to say we're all military people here. We're all sometime in the future going to go to Valhalla where all the warriors go. But I want to warn my friends from the Air Force, the Army, and the Navy. When you look on heaven's scenes, you'll find the streets are guarded by the United States Marines. Hoorah!
Could the war have been stopped earlier?
Yeah,
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't even know. The whole start of this thing is so complex. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's a good question. I have no idea if it could have been or not.
That must have been 15 years. That's a long time.
The Brits? No. And the French. And I usually go through a whole thing about the French. The French were there for 80 years, and the Japanese kicked them out. And then they went back. And from 46 to 54, we fought the first Indochina War, which was basically the French against the Vietnam, and we supported the French immensely. I think that's how we kind of got involved. But it's interesting, the French, in that 8-year period, with their colonials fighting for them, lost 117,000 people in that 8-year war. And we picked up, fortunately, we lost over 58,000 servicemen in Vietnam. Anything else? Great questions.
Maybe I didn't hear. How many people did everyone evacuate that day?
Okay, she asked, how many did we actually evacuate that day? Just about 8,000 came out by helicopter that day. That's an immense lift. You know, most from the DAO compound, a lot from the embassy. And I think everybody assumed my mission was pretty much end the embassy thing. I was going to get the ambassador staff, and that was all we were going to take from her. But it didn't work out that way because she didn't come out with it. Don, do you have a question?
No, I'm just trying to sleep.
Good thing. No, I went to high school together.
Good. Could you guys describe the remainder of your career in the Marines, what you did after Vietnam?
Well, sure, I had a great time afterwards. I got to spend 4 years in Hawaii. And this is what I tell people. If I could ever be reincarnated, I'd come back as an officer's wife at Canyon Bay in Hawaii. I'm not gonna have it. But I'm very fortunate. I got to fly jets. I flew OB-10 Broncos. I was commanding off for the OB-10 squadron in Newburgh, North Carolina. I got the go to basic school because they want to get you to flight school in a hurry and get you to Vietnam. So when I became the XO of the basic school, we sent all the defense through. I didn't know where it was. And it was at 24 somewhere. They finally figured out that I didn't know. Then I got to be a group commander. MAG 36, going over 36 on Okinawa. A great time. I got to go to top level school at Newport, Rhode Island, Navy. So good career. Good career.
Was there fighting in the streets during the time you evacuated?
No, I didn't see any fighting in the streets. He asked if there was any fighting in the streets. But I told somebody earlier, one of the things that scared me was I really had a feeling after all the North Vietnamese didn't want to shoot you down because I was going to get them a regiment of Marines on top of them. They didn't want that. But I was afraid that maybe some soldier from South Vietnam might decide, you're going, I'm not. I might take a shot. Because they all had their weapons. So I didn't see any fighting in the street. We saw a lot of uniforms discarded when the NVA was very close. Anything else?
Was there a lot of gold bars at
Yes, there's a lot of gold bars passed around. I don't have any, but I'd like to have some. I didn't see any of that. One of the things, though, that was very interesting, money-wise, they were burning American dollars on top of the embassy were extracting along with a lot of paperwork. And I've often told my wife, who likes to buy a new dress every week, that it would have been nice to have some of that money. I could have just got out of the helicopter, but I didn't. Good question. I'm glad to be here. Sure.
Probably the most iconic picture is shown for the back of Saigon. The helicopter on top of the whole building. As I understand it, as we've been told from the Marines that were there, that is not top. You didn't see that was a post office? Is that right?
You know, I don't know what that was. He's talking about that iconic photo of the helicopter on the little roof. That is actually a CIA helicopter about 3 or 4 days prior to the big evac. And they were moving people probably to the DAO compound. But yeah, that's not a green helicopter, that's not the Ace.
My sister was just over there a few months ago on trip, and they were in Ho Chi Minh City, and she asked the bus driver to see if they would take down close to the consulate where the embassy was. And the driver said that picture, that helicopter, he said it was way over here in the post office. So they didn't know how active it was.
Now there's a more iconic photo right there. That's Laday Ace on that. Helicopter. I'll tell you one more thing. The wife and I were just invited out to the Flying Leatherneck Museum in Irvine, California. And they had that helicopter there. And we got to set it in and they had to sign it from 75 and 25. Very emotional. Very emotional. They've done a great job. But all of my buddies who saw it said they didn't clean it up. You know, we took out as many as 50 at a time. And I'll be honest with you, the Vietnamese were not allowed to carry anything but a little dainty thing. Vietnamese probably weighed 110, 150 pounds. It's not like carrying out a combat marine who weighed 250. So you really double up and triple up. We didn't have the seats down. They just sat on the floor. Safety kind of out in the middle and that stuff. It was exciting.
Again, has done an extraordinary job organizing 2 events this week, and the event down in Des Moines where Colonel Berry was the keynote speaker on Wednesday was so well done, and I'm grateful that you took the time to come here. I really, really appreciate that. Everyone, you can see the room full of people here. There are a lot of people watching this from their rooms here on campus too, And it just means a lot. You took the time to come and visit. So thank you for having me.